The village, simple and quiet, thrived on the land's bounty, and its people were bound by traditions and stories passed down through generations. Tales of gods and spirits lingered in the air like whispers on the wind, and the river itself was said to be home to ancient beings. The villagers often warned their children never to venture too close to its depths, for they believed that unforeseen forces resides within. Chike was raised by a family that had always made him feel loved and secure. His father, a hard-working farmer, tilled the earth with steady hands, and his mother, known for her fine mat weaving, kept their modest home in order. He had a younger sister, Nena, whose laughter often filled the air, chasing away the silence of their small household. Life was simple, but Chike always sensed that something about him was different. From a young age, Chike exhibited strength far beyond his years, but his family brushed it off, believing it was merely a sign that he was growing to be a strong bull. They did not question it at first, but as the years passed, it became harder to ignore. Chike's first display of unusual strength happened when he was about 5 years old. His father, as he did every planting season, had been preparing the land for new crops. It was a hot afternoon, the kind that made the air simmer, and the sweat dripped endlessly from one's brow after a long day of work. Chike's father gathered up the largest yams, placing them in a woven basket, too heavy for most to carry. "Chike, go and fetch me some water," his father had said, his voice gentle but tired. But instead of heading for the water jug, Chike, seeing how weary his father looked, walked over to the large basket of yams. Without a second thought, he wrapped his small hands around the basket handles and lifted it as though it weighed nothing. His father, upon seeing this, drummed the hole in his hand in shock. "Chike, put that down," his father had exclaimed, rushing over. But the boy didn't understand why his father was so alarmed. In his young mind, he believed he was simply helping. His father, bewildered and wide-eyed, took the basket from him carefully and sent him inside the house. That night, Chike overheard his parents speaking in hushed tones by the fire. "How is it possible?" He carried it like it weighed nothing. "It must be the gift from the gods," his mother replied quietly. "He's only a child," but neither of them could explain it, and so they chose to ignore it, hoping it was just a one-time event. As the years passed, Chike continued to grow stronger, though his family tried to pretend nothing was out of the ordinary. When Chike was 8, another incident occurred, this time in full view of the village children. It was a cool afternoon, and Chike was playing a game with the other children near the edge of the forest. They were chasing one another, laughing and shouting, when one of the boys tripped over a large boulder embedded in the ground. "Ow, that hurts," the boy cried, clutching his foot. The other children gathered around him, trying to help him stand, but the boulder was large and in the way of their path. One of the older boys, Okechukwu, tried to push it aside, but it didn't budge. This time it was too heavy. Okechukwu grumbled, "Should we go back?" Chike, however, stepped forward. Curious, without thinking, he placed his hands on the boulder and pushed it away. To everyone's astonishment, the boulder rolled to the side as if it were no heavier than a stone. The other children stared at him wide-eyed. A few took a step back, unsure of what they had just witnessed. Okechukwu, always the boldest, was the first to speak. "How did you do that?" he asked, his voice filled with awe. Chike shrugged, unsure how to answer. "I don't know. It didn't feel heavy." The whispers began immediately after. The children ran back to the village, their voice loud with excitement and fear. Chike moved a boulder. He must be touched by the spirit. By the time Chike returned home that evening, the entire village had heard the story. His parents were waiting for him, their faces filled with concern. The third incident was the most alarming of all. Chike was now 10 years old, and by this time the villagers had grown uneasy around him. Though no one spoke of it to his face, he could feel the change. The children who once played with him kept their distance. The adult no longer greeted him with warmth. Even his parents had begun to act strangely around him, watching him with weary eyes. One evening, a storm swept through the village. bringing with it strong winds that rattled the earth and sent leaves swirling into the air. Chike's family sat together inside the fire crackling in the hearth. The wind howled inside, and suddenly the heavy wooden door to their hut swung open violently, slamming against the wall. His father stood up, hurriedly trying to close it. "The wind is too strong," he muttered, but before he could reach the door, Chike, in a moment of impulse, stretched out his hands. With a simple push, he closed the door. Despite the wind's resistance, as though it were nothing more than a paper sheet, his mother gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. His father stopped in his tracks, staring at Chike with wide eyes. The wind outside roared, but inside the hut there was only silence. "What are you?" his father whispered, fear creeping into his voice. Chike looked down at his hands, confused and afraid. "I don't know," he replied softly. After that night, the rumors began to spread like wildfire. The villagers were no longer just whispering. They were afraid. They had seen the signs like this before. They said in the old stories, strength like this didn't come from a mortal child. It came from the gods, or was from something dark and dangerous. The village elders called for a meeting. Chike's family was summoned, and though they tried to keep the details of Chike's strength quiet, it was too late. Everyone in the village had an opinion. They believed Chike was a blessing, sent by the gods to protect the village. Others were convinced that he was cursed, that such power could only bring misfortune. As the villagers gathered under the great iroko tree, the elders sat in a circle, discussing what should be done. A wise man named Ozoemena raised his hand, silencing the crowd. "This is not the first time we've heard stories of children with unusual abilities," he began, his voice calm but commanding. "We must be careful not to jump to conclusions. Chike is still a boy, and we must protect him. But what if he brings danger to the village?" one man shouted from the crowd. "What if the gods are angry?" Ozoemena's gaze swept across the villagers. "The gods do not act without reason. If Chike is special, then it's for a purpose. We will not cast him out. We will watch and we will wait. The truth will be revealed in its time." The meeting ended, but the tension in the village remained. People avoided Chike more than ever, and his parents, though they loved him, began to keep a distance. Chike felt the weight of their fear, their confusion, and it hurt him more than anything else. It was on one of those lonely days after the village meeting that Chike found himself by the river once again. The river had always brought him comfort, and as he sat on its bank and watched the water flow, he wondered if the answer to his questions lay beneath its surface. Then, as if in response to his silent plea, the water began to ripple. Though there was no wind, Chike stood as the water seemed and from its depths, a figure emerged. She was beautiful, with skin that glistened like water under the sun, and her long hair flowed like the river itself. Her eyes, deep and ancient, looked into his. "Chike," she said softly, her voice like the gentle rush of the stream. "Do you know who I am?" Chike shook his head, unable to speak. "I am Mirimma," she said, stepping closer to the shore. "I am your mother." Chike stood frozen by the riverbank, his heart thudding on his chest as he gazed at the woman who had emerged from the shimmering water. Her presence felt both familiar and foreign. Her words echoed in his mind. "I am your mother." How could that be? His mother was at home, worried sick about him. His mother was the woman who raised him, cared for him and fed him. But something deep within him stared at the sight of Mirimma, as though he had always known her, but had forgotten her. Her eyes, deep and knowing, seemed to see through him, unraveling the confusion that churned inside. "How can you be my mother?" Chike finally managed to ask, his voice trembling with doubt. Mirimma smiled gently, her feet still submerged in the water. "Because you are not like them," she replied. "You have always felt it, haven't you? That you are different, that your strength is not of this world." Chike took a step back, shaking his head. "I don't understand. You were born of the gods, Chike. You carry within you the power of the water, the strength of the tides. Your father and I, we were gods of the river. but we had to leave you here in the care of mortals to protect you from our enemies. Now that you are older, your power has begun to reveal itself. It is time for you to come home." The words weighed heavily on Chike's heart. Was it true? Could he really be the child of a goddess? It explained the strength, the whispers, and the strange way people reacted to him. But if this was true, what did that mean for the family that had raised him? "I have a family," Chike said, his voice crackling. "They are my parents." Mmarima smiled, faltered, her expression softening with what appeared to be sympathy. "They love you, I am sure, but they are not your blood. They were tasked with caring for you until the time came for you to return to me." Chike's mind raced. If what she said was true, then his entire life had been built on a lie. He didn't know what to believe, and yet something about Mmarima's presence felt undeniable. There was a connection between them, a bond he couldn't explain. "Come with me," Chike, Mmarima said, extending her hand. "Your strength is needed. There is a world beyond this village, a world where you truly belong." Chike hesitated, his heart tugging in two directions, towards the woman who claimed to be his mother and towards the family who had raised him. How could he choose? That evening, Chike returned home, the weight of Mmarima's word pressed down on him like a heavy stone. His father and mother were sitting by the fire, their faces lined with worry. They had noticed his distance, the way he had grown quiet and withdrawn since the incident involving his strength. They feared what might happen next. Chike sat down near them, the glow of the fire dancing across his face. For a long time there was silence. Then he spoke, his voice low. "Who am I?" His mother's hands stilled in her lap, her breath catching in her throat. His father exchanged a look with her, one filled with unspoken words and hidden fear. It was his father who finally spoke, his voice heavy with sorrow. "You are our son, Chike," he said softly. "But I'm not," Chike replied, his voice tremor now. "I met her, Mmarima. She says she's my real mother." The silence that followed was deafening. His mother lowered her head, unable to meet his eyes, while his father's face tightened with the truth that had been hidden for so long. "She told you the truth," his father admitted at last, his voice barely above a whisper. "You are not ours by blood. We were asked to care for you." It was for your protection, Chike. Chike's heart shattered at the words. He had suspected it, but hearing it from his father's lips made the reality all too real. His whole life, the people he had loved, the home he had known, had all been built on a lie. "Why didn't you tell me?" Chike asked, his voice trembling with hurt. "Why didn't you tell me I wasn't your son?" "We loved you as our son," his mother said finally, looking up, tears beaming in her eyes. "We didn't want you to feel different. We were afraid you would leave us." Chike's anger fled. "So you lied to me. You made me believe I was one of you all this time." His father rose from his seat and placed a hand on his shoulders. "We did it to protect you, Chike. The world your real mother comes from is dangerous. We are safer here with us." Chike shrugged off his father's hand, stepping back. His heart ached with betrayal, with the pain of knowing that everything he thought he knew was false. The family that had been his world had lied to him, and now he didn't know where he belonged. "I don't know who to trust anymore," Chike said quietly, his voice crackling under the weight of his emotions. Without any word, he turned and left the house. That night, swallowing him up, Chike ran towards the river, the place where it had all begun. He needed answers, but more than that, he needed to understand who he truly was. The stars twinkled above him, but they offered no comfort, no guidance. As he neared the riverbank, expecting to find Mmarima waiting for him, he was surprised to see an old man sitting by the water's edge instead. The man wore a simple clothes, his face lined with age and wisdom, his eyes sharp and observant. "You are lost, young one," the old man said, his voice deep and soothing. Chike stopped, his chest heavy from the run. "Who are you?" he asked. "I am someone who has been watching over you for a long time," the man replied, standing slowly and walking towards Chike. "I am here to tell you the truth." Chike's brow furrowed. "The truth?" Merima is not your mother, the old man said. She is a goddess, yes, but she is not the one who gave birth to you. Chike's heart pounded in his chest. Then who am I? You are the child of the gods, but not hers. She is your aunt. Your true parents were powerful beings who sought to protect you from her. They hid you in this village among mortals so that you could grow up safe, away from her grasp. Chike's mind reeled. Why would they hide me from her? Because she seeks to use your power, the strength you possess, to claim dominion over the seas. Your strength is not just a gift. It is the key controlling the forces far greater than you can imagine. Chike's hands clenched into fists as the weight of the old man's words sank in. So she has been lying to me this whole time? The old man nodded. She is not to be trusted. She wants to take you away from this world to use you for her own gain. Chike felt a surge of anger and betrayal, not just towards Merima, but towards everything he had known. The family that had raised him, the villagers who had whispered behind his back, the goddess who claimed to be his mother. It was all a tangled web of lies and deceit. What should I do? Chike asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. The old man placed a hand on Chike's shoulders. The choice is yours, young one. You have the strength of the gods within you. But how to use it and who you choose to trust is up to you. As the old man's words hung in the air, the river began to stir once more from its depth. Merima rose, her face darkening with anger and impatience. Chike, she called, her voice like thunder. It is time to come with me. Chike turned to face her, his heart pounding. He had a choice to make. Trust the woman who had lied to him, or stand his ground and protect the life he had known. You are not my mother, Chike said, his voice strong and steady. Mirima's eyes flashed with fury. Do not defy me, boy. You belong to me. Chike stepped forward, his strength surging within him like never before. I belong to no one, he declared. With a mighty roar, Merima lunged towards him, and the water swirling around her like a storm. But Chike stood firm, his feet planted on the earth, his strength rippling through his body. He pushed back with his might, resisting her pull, and with one final surge of power, he forced her back into the water. The water rolled and churned as Merima disappeared beneath the surface. Peace returned to the river. Chike stood by the river bank, breathing heavily. He had made his choice. The river was still now, as though the storm had never come. The man smiled at him, pride evident in his eyes. You have chosen wisely, the old man said. You have the strength of the gods, Chike, but your heart belongs to this world. Chike nodded, though his heart still ached from the betrayal he had experienced. He knew now that his journey was far from over, but he also knew he was no longer the lost boy who had once questioned who he was. He was Chike, the child of the gods, but more than that, he was the boy who had the power to choose his own destiny. The end. Comment below if you'd want a part 2 and I'll work on it. See you in the next one. Till then, bye.
Thank you so much for watching till the end. Please click on the subscribe button to support us. Turn on the post notification to get notified when I upload a new story. Like, share, and comment your thoughts. Till then, bye.